This is Mac OS Ken.
Morgan Stanley cuts its Apple target. Apple and the UK go toe-to-toe. And hubbub around Apple's Home Hub. It is Thursday, the 13th of March, 2025. I'm Ken Ray, and this is news from Mac OS Ken, brought to you by yours truly and sponsored by Incogni. Take your personal data back and get 60% off an annual plan with code MacOSKen at incogni.com/MacOSKen. This show is also supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/MacOSKen. With a drop of over $23 in the last 3 trading sessions combined, the question might not be why did Morgan Stanley analyst Eric Woodring cut his price target on Apple shares, but what took him so long? Hard to imagine there won't be more to come, not because there's anything wrong with Apple, but because, seriously, a drop of $23 in the last 3 trading sessions combined. Not that there's nothing to be worried about around the Cupertino company. Apple Insider highlighted the note from Woodring, which had him cutting his 12-month price target by, hey, what do you know, by $23. The piece says that was due to what he sees to be slower iPhone upgrade rates because of tariffs and delayed Siri and Apple Intelligence rollout. He and his had been expecting a jump in iPhone sales in April with the release of iOS 18.4. That's the one that was expected to have the more personalized Siri features. Those features were pushed back an indeterminate period of time in a statement from Apple last week. As for the tariffs, the piece says Woodring assumes that Apple will get hit by $2 billion in product costs. He's not sure whether Apple will raise prices for consumers to offset that hit. Given that exporting countries don't pay the tariffs and importing companies do, Apple Insider says an increase in prices for consumers is not out of the question. Woodring still has a positive rating on Apple shares. That said, his former price target of $275 in the next 12 months was a bit much. His new price target is $252. Apple shares closed Wednesday 2 cents shy of $217. News of a public row between Apple and the UK, and talk of a private one. On the one happening out loud, another piece from Apple Insider has the UK's Competition and Markets Authority, or CMA, giving Apple a stern talking to over browser innovation, with nothing to back up the sternness. According to the report, back in November 2024, the CMA released a preliminary report saying that Apple blocks developers' ability to offer innovation in the browser market. Apple responded by saying the CMA was giving too much weight to the self-interest arguments from its rivals. Those rivals listed in the site include Facebook, Microsoft, Mozilla, and Vivaldi. The whole thing's pretty messed up by Apple Insider's telling. It hinges on Apple not allowing browsers for iOS to be built on any engine other than WebKit, browsers in the European Union not included. Apple says that rule is there for the privacy and security of its users, while Facebook and the others say they could make browsers that are more efficient and more secure with the WebKit requirement removed. The CMA seems to ignore Apple's privacy and security arguments and take the arguments of Facebook and friends at face value, according to Apple Insider. And now regulators plan to do nothing about it. They say to act under the rules in effect while their investigation was ongoing would introduce a number of significant risks to the effectiveness of their actions. The CMA has since gotten new powers, notably the power to designate firms as having strategic market status, which sounds like the gatekeeper rules held by the European Union. They're currently trying to decide whether Apple has strategic market status. One assumes they'll make a formal decision on the browser thing once they decide whether Apple is big enough to fool with. The whole thing is pretty messed up, by Apple Insider's telling. On the secret side, the worst kept secret between Apple and the UK is headed for a secret hearing on Friday. That is the word from the BBC. You know the story. It's the one that had the British government demanding a backdoor to encrypted data in iCloud. That would not only give officials in the UK access to the encrypted info of its citizens, but access to encrypted iCloud data belonging to anybody in the world. That led Apple to remove its Advanced Data Protection Service from the UK without acknowledging the reported demand, because to do so would be illegal under the UK's Investigatory Powers Act, the same law under which the UK reportedly made the demand. A piece from the Financial Times said that wasn't enough to satisfy UK authorities. And seriously, why would it be? They want access. Apple saying never mind isn't going to make that desire go away. Despite Apple pulling the service, the Financial Times said last week that the British government still believes the big tech company has failed to comply with its order, which can also be used to access the data of individuals outside the UK. That same piece said Apple made an appeal to the Investigatory Powers Tribunal, an independent judicial body that examines complaints against the UK security services, which brings us back to the Beeb. The aforementioned BBC piece says Apple's appeal against a UK government demand to be able to access its customers' most highly encrypted data is set to be considered at a secret hearing at the High Court on Friday. So we know what, we know when, and we know where. Personally, I look forward to not hearing what happens at this totally secret thing that's probably not even happening, except it is. The worst kept secret between Apple and the UK. Speaking of worst kept secrets, TF International analyst Ming-Chi thinks Apple's HomePod with a screen is going into production later this year. Actually, I guess the HomePod with a screen idea isn't so much a secret as an oft-repeated rumor. Whatever the case, Mac Rumors had the analyst hitting the Hell site midweek, reiterating his belief that a new HomePod with a screen will enter mass production in the third quarter of this year. The site assumes he's talking about Apple's rumored smart home hub. Ming-Chi had originally expected the device to start production this quarter, though he changed that, saying manufacturing was pushed back due to software development issues, including Apple Intelligence. Of course, as was mentioned earlier, the shiniest of Apple Intelligence features got pushed back even further in the past week. And yet, he sees the rumored device starting production in Q3. Mac Rumor says it's unclear if the Home Hub will launch in late 2025 or if the delays will push it back until 2026. Given the recent spate of uncertainty around all things Apple, it seems like whether the thing is even gonna happen seems unclear. But we'll see. More news in a moment, but first a word from today's sponsor, Incogni, helping you take back your personal data. The size of the industry dealing in our personal info is enormous. One EFF exec says the data broker industry is the Wild West of unregulated surveillance. It's a vast, interconnected, opaque industry with hundreds of companies people have never heard of making billions of dollars per year selling your personal data. Let Incogni work to get your data out of data brokers' hands. Make an account, give them permission to work on your behalf, and Incogni requests data brokers remove your data, deals with any objections they have, and keeps doing it. Whenever a new record is created on a data broker site, Incogni's ready with another removal request. They've gotten my data pulled from over 250 sites, 57 of them permanently. Let them do that for you. Take control of your data privacy today with Incogni. Get 60% off an annual plan with code MacOSKen at incogni.com/MacOSKen. That's a great savings, and it comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. INCOGNI. Get 60% off an annual plan with code MacOSKen at incogni.com/MacOSKen. macOS Ken. In case you've forgotten, Apple's smarter, more personalized digital assistant, you know the one I'm talking about, rhymes with weary. It's going to be late. 9 to 5 Mac says the Cupertino company has updated the Apple website with a new disclaimer wherever the unreleased Siri features are mentioned on the iPhone marketing pages. The piece says the on-site disclaimer is about as vague as the one offered last week to Daring Fireball. That one said, "It's going to take us longer than we thought to deliver on these features, and we anticipate rolling them out in the coming year." The new one popping up on Apple's site says, "Personal context understanding, on-screen awareness, and in-app actions are in development and will be available with a future software update." I've not read this anywhere, but my guess is this is Apple trying to avoid lawsuits over features announced and anticipated, though so far undelivered. I would also bet that there are teams of lawyers scattered about trying to craft lawsuits against the Cupertino company. We wouldn't have bought it, or we would have paid less, or something else equally stupid. Speaking of delays, Apple's most powerful Mac Studio seems to be facing one. If it's really the one you need, though, it's probably worth the wait. While last week's announced hardware is now in the satchels and on the desks of consumers worldwide, folks buying an M3 Ultra-powered Mac Studio with 512 gigabytes of RAM and 16 terabytes of storage will need to start crossing days off the calendar. Order one today, and a piece from Mac Rumors says you will not be taking delivery until sometime between the 26th of March and the 31st. The piece says it appears to be the 512 gigabytes of RAM that's coming up the works. Again, though, if it's really the one you need, it's probably worth the wait. And finally today, there's a new trailer out for an anticipated Apple TV Plus drama. The Cupertino streamer issued a press release Wednesday teasing the John Hamm-led drama Your Friends and Neighbors. I gotta say, I was really excited about this show until I saw the trailer. Production values look great, cast looks amazing. I'm a big fan of John Hamm, Amanda Peet, and Olivia Munn, all three of whom are prominent in the trailer. But the show seems to be about a rich, white dude who loses his job, only has enough money to live at his current level for about 6 months, and starts stealing from his friends and neighbors to stay at his elevated level. Like breaking and entering and fencing stuff, that kind of stealing. So let's go back to the beginning. He starts off rich, loses his job, and rather than tightening his belt, lowering his standards maybe, starts taking stuff that doesn't belong to him. That makes him the bad guy, right? Look, the show may be amazing. I'm not saying I'm not going to watch it. I don't know. I'll wait for reviews. But come on. Remember, great stories can change the world? What are we even doing here? Anyway, the first 2 episodes hit Apple TV Plus on Friday, the 11th of April. If you want to see the trailer, it is up now on YouTube. And I gotta ask one more time, what are we even doing here? macOS Ken, brought to you by me and sponsored by Incogni. Get 60% off an annual plan with code macOSKen at incogni.com/macOSKen. This show is also supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/macOSKen. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media, online at backbeatmedia.com. You can reach me a couple of ways. Info at macosken.com or call 716-780-4080. Until next time, that is news from macOS Ken. I'm Ken Ray.
Leonard likes this post.